Thank you very much for the invitation. Uh, my talk is about a kind of disaster. It's happened in cities, in big cities like Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi in Vietnam, and it may also be somehow relevant in other cities in Southeast Asia as well. Okay, I'm Tran Pham, just call me Vũ, from Ho Chi Minh City University of Technology, Vietnam. Okay, can you hear me well?
Yes. Yes, very good. Go on, please. Hello?
Urban area that's in Ho Chi Minh City, the sources of disaster is for mitigation and some example solution that we have in our lab here in Vietnam. So let's slide from system on the top water side, right, on the right hand side on the touch of the touch screen, and you see that the quality is not. On the bottom, you see the environment, the water is contaminated, and a lot of fishes are dead, and the traffic and so on. So, in my view, these are also a kind of disaster. It's different from forest fire, storm, and so on, but it's also a kind of disaster, and it's happen commonly in developing countries like Vietnam. And in Vietnam, we are trying to dealing with that kind of so-called disaster. So we name it a disaster in urban areas. So where does the disaster come from? We can say that disaster can be from natural, like the global warming, right? Sea water rising, or irregular heavy rains because of the transient water system, the storm, and so on. So the reason that the water rising is that Ho Chi Minh City located by Vietnam like Saigon River and Dong Na River. So Ho Chi Minh City is a very flat and lowland area. So when the water rising, it's got a lot of trouble. Even if the water is low, but if there are heavy rains, a little bit of storm, right, the whole city can be flooded with water. So it's some of the natural source of disaster in urban area like what you've seen. But there are also human-related activity that can cause the disaster to the whole city, like the management of wastewater. Because in the city, there are usually a lot of many industrial zones, and the industrial activity can produce wastewater. If we don't manage that kind of water efficiently, it can cause environmental disaster to the whole city. Right? Other aspect of that, you can see in city, development city like Ho Chi Minh City or Hanoi, there are lots of private means of transport, like motorcycle, like a car, and so on. And the infrastructure usually are not good enough to deal with the rise in the number of vehicles. Therefore, it's got some trouble like traffic jam and so on. You may see that it's just social activity, but from a management point of view, it can be a long-lasting disaster. And of course, we need to have some efficient solution for that. The other aspect, the other source of disaster in cities that you can see that countries like Vietnam are growing very fast, and sometimes the because the economic activity growing too fast that the management usually can cope with that. It needs some time for the management system to mature to deal with the new factor in the economy. So there are lots of things that can make the disaster in urban area in city. So what can we do? Right. So from the scientific point of view, we can see that the disaster, the so-called disaster, as I name it, in as urban area, right, it have some challenges for its out. Firstly, the activity in city is can affect a lot of people directly, right? Any environmental incident like the contaminated air, contaminated water can affect the life of the people because the city are usually the highly populated area and it's mean a lot of human activity there. So a solution for that is also very difficult, right? We need to mitigate the disaster immediately, otherwise it can cause long-lasting effect. And the solution in the city area is also different from the one we can have like in the mountain, in the forest, because in the city there are a lot of human activity as well. Right? If we don't carefully design our solution, it can have an effect on the human life, or the human activity can interfere with our solution and it makes the solution become inefficient. Okay, so what we are doing here in Vietnam, right? We take a couple of approaches from mitigating the disaster. The cities like Ho Chi Minh City now trying to apply a couple of methods. The traditional ways are building bridges and building new roads to prevent the water coming to the city, right? Redesign the city, moving the people to new area and so on. But that kind of solutions are usually very expensive, and for a country like Vietnam, it's very hard actually to have enough money to have that kind of solution for the city. And we are trying another approach using state-of-the-art technology, right? So to help to reduce the effect of disaster. This kind of solution cannot totally solve the disaster, but it can help to prevent the disaster to happen, can help to ease the bad effect of the disaster. So what we're doing now is try to apply the advances of IoT, like we're using a lot of sensor for collecting data and for monitoring the environment. For example, monitoring the sea water level in the city, monitoring the quality of the air, monitoring the traffic, right? And then we apply big data technology for storage, fusing and analyzing the data so that we can predict what can happen, we can forecast, and we can try a proper solution with reasonable amount of money. And we also try to exploit the smart devices. Today we have like smartphones, tablets, and human can also become a source of good information. And you know that today we use quite a lot the crowdsourcing techniques so that we can turn a human being become a human sensor so that we can have up-to-date information about the event, about what's happened in the city. Because in the city we have a lot of people living, so they they are anywhere and they can provide useful information for us so that we can have a way to solve the problem. So that's the approach that we are trying to do at the moment. So here's some of the example solutions we've done so far in our lab in Vietnam. Firstly, for the environmental issue, we developed a kind of system, a monitoring system, with the help of sensor, as you see on the screen. Right on the bottom, we have a sensor. The sensor will collect data and send to a kind of data logger in the middle here. The data logger will send data to the server. From there, we can process the data, we can analyze, we can have a prediction of what's going to happen and so on. Then we feed back to the people, we feed back the information to the city government so that they know what's going on, and then we can try to find the optimized solution for the problem. We can help to announce the information about disaster to the people, for example. Let me give an example like what we have here. The industrial zone, usually they produce a lot of wastewater. And this kind of system can help to monitor constantly the quality of the wastewater. And if something happens, we can immediately notify the government to find a way to reduce the effect of that. So that's one of the solutions we're doing now. So it's a combination of IoT, the data, big data, and we're also using some kind of high performance computing to perform analysis or perform computation on a huge amount of data. The second solution we have here in Ho Chi Minh City is that we have a smart traffic system. So it's now in operation. And you see on the screen, we have 3 columns. The first one is for data collection. So the data we collect for the traffic problem here, mostly from the smartphone, from tablets, from public transport system like buses and taxis and so on. As required by regulation in Vietnam, all the public transport must have a GPS-enabled device. So from that, we can get the location of a vehicle on the street. The city also use a lot of traffic camera, and also we also have a radio broadcasting system that constantly monitor the state of traffic and then